Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins. I have the great pleasure of hosting Johnny Cirucci, who is also known as Giovanni Cirucci, the host of the Resistance Rising podcast. And so I'll wait for Johnny to appear backstage and just say hello to a few people. Come and say hi in the chat. Let me know how your day's going. It's 9 degrees Celsius here. And I was kind of shocked because it looked crappy and it was crappy yesterday. And then I'm outside and I'm going like, wow, no northern cold wind coming at me for a change. Hello, Steve. Nice to see you. So Johnny, whenever you're ready, you can just give me the thumbs up and let me know you want to come on. Okay, he's ready. Here we go. All right. And I'll just let you know for anyone that might be new to the King Heroes Journey podcast, this is, oh, hey, Don is in the room. Nice to see you. This is where I host people who are not afraid to tell the truth. Now, in this world, we all think we are that person. And there might come that exact moment where there's a line you don't want to cross, a truth you don't want to tell, because usually why? Someone's not going to like you or approve you, or you're not going to be in the right circle with the right friends or the old friends that you had. And part of me just feels like the truth is more important than that, although it's not a question of, losing love or anything like that. But welcome, Johnny. It's really great to have you here.
Beth, it's a thrill to be here. And I was almost late, and I was almost pulled away because of my fur babies. I was almost late because I have a convention of supplementing their food, good supplements, real supplements, not pills, not vitamins. And looking forward to interviewing Garrett. And when you broke that to me, I think it was you. Yeah, it was you that broke that to me. I know that my dear friend Shannon Rowan has been working on Are Vitamins a Thing? And then you came at me with, oh, vitamins are a thing. They're toxic. And a light just went off. Everybody needs to pull out. Everybody needs to pull out and go big picture, okay? Big picture. Does it make any sense that the medical, scientific, health industry loves you so much that they dissected with all of their whirling lights and spinning test tubes our food, and they found these things in our food that are really helpful to us, vitamins. And because they love us so much, they have found ways to synthesize these vitamins and give them to us in easy, ready-made pills. All you got to do is just swallow it down. Now, for anyone that is an investigator, Beth, as soon as you realize 9/11, moon landing, building 7, as soon as you realize you've been lied to, you become a conspiracy theorist. So does it make sense, all you conspiracy theorists out there, that the medical science health industry that says trust the experts loves you so much that they have synthesized out of your food what you really need to give it to you to make you healthy and to help you live longer? Does that make any sense of the big picture? Of course not. Of course not. So the supplements I was making for my babies is I supplement their food. I wish I could do more. I know that Shannon makes her own everything for her fur babies. I think she makes her own kibble, and if that's really the best way to approach it, I'm not set up for that. But what I do is I take things that they need. I mean, think about it. If you're only giving your pets, good grief, you're only giving them kibble, you are dramatically reducing the nutrients that they need to be healthy. Well, I go a step beyond, and I take fruit and veg and blend it. And of course, it does require some research, because there are some vegetables and some fruit that are supposedly no-nos for pets, to include onions, garlic, grapes for some reason are a no-no. Grapes and therefore raisins. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff, usually green stuff is good. And I will take that and I'll blend it up. And I'm close to, at times, between a quarter and a third of their meal gets this supplement. I call it CHOP. So I was making that before I got here. And then there's some stress going on in the background. I run over and throw water on that fire. But listen, it's all about being informed. And if anybody knows, real quick, Johnny in a nutshell, lifetime military career, had a horrible experience, got out of the military, absolutely miserable. Don Lester is here. Yeah. Listen, it's a burden. It's a burden. So what is Dawn pointing at? You've got to do it all yourself. You've got to do it all yourself, because the system is malignant. The system is malignant. Lifetime military, and I was blessed to have a miserable time in the military. I got out disaffected, asking questions, and as a result, asking questions, period, and gravitating towards alternative media, because it was obvious to me that mainstream media, I had known for decades that mainstream media were filled with a bunch of far left biased liars. I had known that. But in the 90s, I had gravitated, been pulled towards then alternative conservative media. I call now, with love and hate, conservatard, people who have right-minded values, but don't have the courage to fully wake up. They only ask half questions, and if it scares, the truth scares them, they run away. The Rush Limbaughs and Mark Levins and Irish Roman Catholic Bill O'Reilly, Irish Roman Catholic Sean Hannity, still out there, still doing what they do, blowing smoke at the right-wing crowd. They're the most dangerous. And in that time, I had come across, I had been blogging and writing since I was in college, and something else important happening was in college. I was born and raised Italian Roman Catholic, and I can alter the Catholic. I can't alter the Italian. That's unfortunately, that's with me to my grave. And I came to Jesus Christ. I became born again in college. My second try at college. I became born again in 1994, and that changed me dramatically. And so that was like my first basic red pill. And 20 years later, it took me a far larger red pill. As I'm looking into the truth, and I'm constantly asking questions, and I'm relying on people like Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin to give me answers. And especially with the advent of Barack Obama and his presidency, it was quite clear that they were not going to give me the answers, that they were going to be part of the machine and cover up the truth. And so I looked deeper, and I kept coming across Illuminati this, Illuminati that. And I'm a military guy. I know that Illuminati tells me nothing. If I go to my team and I say, go to war, kick their butts, and win, and I tell my team, go get the deep state, my team's going to say, hey, Cap, what are you talking about? I left the military as a captain. Cap, what are you talking about? I have no idea who the deep state is. You know,
should we quickly give some context and just introduce you a little bit here?
Yes, ma'am. That's what I'm hoping to do, is to let people know, where does this guy come from? And so right now, as I am right now, author, speaker, content provider, investigative journalist. Okay. So I've got 5 books. I've got hundreds of articles and thousands of VITs that I've been doing for close to 15 years now. This is my background. This is what put me there, is hearing, okay, what do I need? I'm trying to find out what's really going on. Illuminati. So I did my own research, and it was apparent to me that Illuminati was a buzzword, just like deep state is a buzzword, just like globalist is a buzzword, designed to not tell you who's really running the show. And I came across Illuminati. I finally came across a name. Okay, names, places, and dates. Johann Adam Weishaupt. That was huge. That allowed me to dig deeper, and I came across something I'd never seen before. Of course, something I was familiar with, Jesuit. Johann Adam Weishaupt, Jesuit. So,
And
This put
just
me on
given,
my trail. Go ahead.
yeah. Just given that we're on YouTube, just a reminder that if there are words that are like
That's one. I'm sorry. Yes,
buzzwords
ma'am.
are censorable, just for fun.
Yes, ma'am. No,
We'll pick a, if you want to use the J word,
thank
I don't
you.
know if
Yes, ma'am. I
that's possible or
absolutely
anything
agree.
like that. But yeah, just so
I'm
you know
sorry.
what, Johnny, I just shared his link to his books in the chat here. So if you want to get right on and order any of those, you can use that link. And Johnny's website is here as well. And I'll let you guys know just the reason that I felt drawn to connect with you and to have you on my podcast was because I consider you to be, I said this to you on the phone that day that we met, that I consider you to be an outlier among outliers. You came recommended. I didn't know you that well, but in talking to you, I realized that, you are one of those people that is able to color outside the lines and not have that fear that people are not going to like you because of it. And so you have a history in the military. Johnny has an excellent bio there in the link that I shared with a lot of detail about what he went through. And would you mind if I started just asking you some questions? And
Correct. Yes, ma'am. I would not. No, I would not mind, ma'am.
yeah,
Thank you.
okay, that's all right. Um, so so what was that transition where like being in the military, where you realized that it was not your beautiful world, and you decided that you just needed to get out of that? And we're going to be talking, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, about World War II and the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, where I have my roots on one side of my family, so that's why I'm interested, just so you know, Johnny. And hello, Paul, nice to see you. So yeah, what was that transition like? What
It was
did you
devastating and
realize?
depressing. It was devastating and depressing. It was my life. It was devastating and depressing. And I will be honest with you, if I weren't born again in Jesus Christ, I don't know how I would have coped with the realization that what I had invested my entire life in had been a horrible fraud, had done me tremendous harm and vaccine damage, had me live a lie, that my sacrifice and the sacrifices of others around me was to enrich a massive, malignant, war-making machine whose only purpose, and I can remember like it was yesterday, I can remember conversations, I can remember seeing people on the right, uneducated people on the right, how easily it would be to froth them up against enemies that weren't their enemy. Yeah, man, turn those sand jockeys and turn it sheets of glass. And even back in that time, I could tell them, if the United States helps itself to any oil in the Middle East, you're not getting any of it. You're not getting any of it. If the United States conquers someplace for resources, that's not going to you. It never goes to you. It goes to billion-dollar interests, men and corporations, billionaires. Even back then, I knew that. But having it, the realization that, let me tell you something, I'll be quite honest with you, even though overall I spent a good solid 20 years active duty side in the Army, I jumped out of the Army before the numbers ticked up to 20. So my retirement is not nearly what it could be because I was so upset and got out too early. I had like, I don't know, 3 years worth of points left to get my full retirement. And Beth, I shot myself in the foot. I was so upset. I was so emotionally distraught at how I had wasted my life and my time. And the good Lord had me, and the good Lord had me in both emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And so there, that answers your question. I was devastated. And I will tell you, it was not a clear shot to what I'm doing now. I would never do what I'm doing now. To this day, I would not pick out to do what I do now. There's no money in it. There's no money in truth. No one wants to hear. There's no analytics in truth. You really are a black sheep. You're an outcast. And what you experienced, I love you so much. That phone call was just so rewarding to me, as to have somebody on the outside say, yeah, you're like radioactive, dude. And it was, if nothing else, it was a rewarding confirmation for me that Okay, at least I'm over the target. At least I'm over the target. And do I have, is there things, are there things that I could probably fix? Sure. My passion, I can't fix that. I'm Italian. Where I made up a meme. There is no be calm and carry on. I'm Italian. I'm sorry. There's no be calm and carry on. Do I allow my personality and my foibles, my character to, when I'm on my own, this will not happen here. I'm thoroughly professional. But when I'm on my own, do I let some 4-letter words fly out? Sure, I do. I've got to release the frustration, or this. I've got a vein in the middle of my forehead. It'll pop out, and it's just not good. Am I worried about the fact that I'm passionately born again as a Christian? No. Christ said, if you're ashamed of me amongst others, I'll be ashamed of you in front of my Father. I'm not worried about that. But I do know it's a divide. I'm very conscious of it, Beth. I don't want that to alienate people. I don't want people to think that because I'm born again, that somehow separates me from those who aren't Christian. That far from it. I want whatever information. I just want people to know that's Jesus who brought me to the dance. If you see me as dedicated to truth at all costs, what an honor to be a member of this show of yours. An example of that. Me being born again is what put me here. Okay, so in no way do I want that to alienate people, but by the same token, I do want people to give credit through me. If you see any value in what I do, that you feel that I'm damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, that's because I'm born again. So.
That's great. Yeah, very good. I just want to address the point about, wasted my time in my life. And I feel like that's a very poignant experience, not just for you, but for pretty much nearly everybody that starts to wake themselves up and allow themselves to see greater truths in their world. And I know I've been through it, my whole life, but especially in the last 5 years when I have been down numerous rabbit holes, whether it was in the law or health or whatever subject that we thought was going to be the be all and the end all. And, and then I think about all the late nights studying law and all this, but I was studying crap that made no sense. That was actually lies. That is part of the propaganda machine meant to stop us and at least tie us up and have us not do real things like build relationships. And then so there can be this remorse that I wasted my life and I wasted my time. And that's actually true. In reality, that is true. And that's the kind of thing that leads to repentance, right? Because otherwise, if you stay in denial of the pain of the waste of the life, then you're not going to make a substantial turn and go in the right direction. So kudos to you. And just to follow up also on being conscious of divide, that is Dawn Lester. She was asking me if you had your archetypes read. So I did try, but I tasked Johnny with too much to handle on the way into this interview. And so the rebel archetype is willing to create divide for the right reason. The rebel, when they go unconscious, will do it for no good reason, just out of habit or out of maybe excitement, out of sometimes actually wanting people's disapproval, because it seems better than having no approval at all. So anyway, I'm an incorrigible archetype reader, and then Dawn reminded me. And your buddy Topher is here. I hear you guys are going to be getting together, and I hope
absolutely. I'm thrilled, and I had a great exchange. And I want to tell you that when you were interviewing Topher, this topic came up where you asked him that you had been told if it's not easy, it's wrong. No, that's wrong. I promise you that if it's impossible, it is possible that you're pushing too hard. But absolutely anything worthwhile is a challenge. I can tell you there is a Christian answer, and I hope not to alienate non-Christians. There is a Christian answer to the wasted life scenario. And the Christian answer to the wasted life scenario is, in Jesus Christ, the promise in Romans chapter 8, verse 28 is that everything happens for a reason, for your greater good, that you toiled away at something that you now think is useless he will take that and use that. I will tell you that my time in the military, my military training has helped me to have an organized lifestyle, has helped me to triage truth, has helped me to recognize this is immediate value, that is peripheral value. So he has used, and the next verse 29, is so that you can be conformed to his image. People ask, and I had this debate, a lively discussion with Don's partner and co-author David Parker in relation to, man, this life is pain. What is the purpose in life? There's so much pain and anguish and women and children being used. The purpose of pain is to mature your spirit. And the sad fact is that only pain and challenge and trial will mature your spirit. And the more mature your spirit gets when you finally meet your creator, and from my perspective, your savior, the more fulfilling it's going to be. So it in our estimation, it's a waste, but he can rescue that. Let's see here. Oh, and let me also,
you know what, you can rescue that. So, I'm a cancer survivor, and people would approach me after, because I started to turn my experiences into something that I could help other people with. And so they would say, "Oh, it's so meant to be that you almost died and went through all this horrendous experience so you could now teach in this way." And I thought about it long and hard, and I went, you know what? No, it wasn't meant to be. I made a big fat mistake, like a major error, and landed with a stage 4 lymphoma. I could have responded sooner than that, before things were completely out of control and I needed 3 years, touch and go. Maybe I'd survive, maybe I don't. But what I notice is that you can take everything that life gives you and create meaning and purpose out of it. And then the purpose of pain, I've talked about this a lot. I did a whole course called Primal Power. And honestly, pain is power. But you could be more accurate that it is a door. If you go through it rather than avoid it, then you're going to find your freedom on the other side, guaranteed. So people are afraid of pain. They don't want pain. There's a certain wisdom in that. Like when your body hurts in some way, it needs your attention. And we just really quickly want to do whatever it is to alleviate that pain. It's not totally wrong, because it's not our true nature to suffer. It's telling us, oh, this is not your true nature. But our allergy to the hard experiences can be exactly what stops us from gaining our freedom for real, not just the thing you describe and you talk about. So would you want to jump into World War II and the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia?
Yeah, okay, because otherwise you'll never get me there. I want to mention, I'm taking notes as you're speaking. Let me do 2 more things, and then we'll go into our topics that you brought me here for. Listen, you're telling me that I would never, ever, ever blame you for making wrong decisions after a cancer diagnosis, because that's the Rockefeller death cult, and it's their goal to keep you ignorant. It's their goal to not have you understand cancer is the 7th and final stage of disease, which is your body screaming at you that you've been poisoned. How could you possibly know that everything out there is designed to keep you in the dark until you're dead from all of the things your body would tell you? The previous 6 stages of loss of energy, of irritation of the skin, that lead into the ultimate, that is cancer. How blessed you are to have survived the Rockefeller death cult. And, oh, well, we're going to hit you with chemicals that burn you, and we'll call it chemotherapy. It's good for you because we put that word therapy on there. Oh, by the way,
these are all buzzwords too on YouTube, just so you know. Like sometimes I say C word because they don't want you to start thinking we're trying to have a cure here.
Wow.
But but I get your point anyway.
Yeah, and it could cause a new version of C word. We're gonna cure you with this burning, and it in the process will maybe cause you a different version of the big C. Are you kidding me? Okay. And real quick, that was the first point, and the other point is, I am very precise in my language. I don't call someone a friend. And I would be said, I'm very warm. I'm very loving towards people, but a friend is someone that you call late at night and talk private, personal things with, versus someone you have a great working relationship with. It's different. It's different. Hero is another example of a word that is horribly overused. My definition of a hero is someone that swims upstream for what they know in their heart is right, versus a loose cannon that makes a fool out of themselves. So I wanted to add those things to your excellent points.
That's
all
nice.
right. So,
Yeah.
wow.
Awesome.
Okay. World War II, Bolshevik Revolution. I will tell you that in what I have found, I tease my Adventist friends because they are strict pacifists. I tell them I am not in any way a dogmatic pacifist. I am against any war that is created by a Luciferian elite for the purpose of enriching themselves and slaughtering us. And it's quite unfortunate. That's pretty much every war. So by default, I am a pacifist. I'm not against war. You know, if I could figure out a way that people could rise up and take care of things and make things right, oh, I would be absolutely all for it. I am just against any war that's created by a malignant elite for the purpose of enriching them and slaughtering us. And unfortunately, that's every war. And I mean every war. You go back to the Hundred Years' War. What is that? That is basically the Catholic kings of France and England fighting with each other over how much land they own, and they take the peasants and pour them into the meat grinder, and they get nothing out of it. It's just a matter of this inbred royal lineage family gets to claim this plot of land. And when they get that plot of land, they isolate it, they close it off, and don't allow the unwashed peasantry to even use it. Insane. So, and just about any war. And you go back to something like, wow, do they you know, as humanity slowly matures, Beth, they have to be fooled a little harder each time. And so when we have World War I and World War II, particularly World War II, World War I with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How in any way does that affect the average person? And the entire world went to war for that? Okay. Now, they got a little bit smarter with so-called World War II, the Great Patriotic War, creating movements that were malignant amongst their target nations. Unfortunately for Japan, Japan was culturally very power, might makes right, colonial. If I have the power to subvert you, I will subvert you. And that's just life. Europe was a little bit different. Europe required a lot more nuance. And I'm going to be careful of how I choose my words. I will tell you that the Third Reich was entirely fabricated. And some of the keys to that, if I can pull up my notes here, are the fact that the Third Reich, Nazis, if I can spell, Microsoft, if I can spell, and Microsoft will allow me to spell. The fact that the Third Reich was born in Munich. You know what Munich was before it became Munich? Ingolstadt. Ingolstadt is the same. How do I say this religion? The religion that is my focus, and the order of priests that are my special focus. It is their stronghold. It was the place where Johann Adam Weishaupt taught canon law. Munich, and before that, it was Ingolstadt. The University of Ingolstadt was a J university where Weishaupt taught canon law. Huge. That's huge. A huge deal. And anything that happened to birth the Third Reich happened first in Munich. Go ahead.
Is it fair to say that that's basically propaganda? That like when you say the Third Reich was fabricated, it's been manufactured for the consciousness that we believe that was real? Is that what you're saying?
No, it was a very real movement. It was a very real movement. It absolutely, well, to my estimation, I mean, honestly, you can get to a very esoteric point where you're like, okay, what's real? What's real? When they're writing history, so you have to use discernment, and if you don't want to go crazy, you know, Plato in the cave. If you don't want to go crazy with trying to discern real, you're going to make some judgments and some deductions. We can talk the H word, okay, in relation to this. It is my estimation based on my research that absolutely there was mass killing of a certain ethnic religious group. There was. It is also my estimation that those numbers are very, very muddied up by design. And what you get when you muddy up those numbers is you get people going, aha, and they take the pendulum. The system takes the pendulum and swings it from extreme to extreme, and there is no balance. So that you have players in there saying it never happened, and you have other players saying don't question anything. It absolutely happened exactly as we are told, when the balance is absolutely somewhere in the middle. Okay, at the bare minimum, I can tell you that these players did need a horrible motivation for mass groups of this ethnic religion to migrate to Palestine. That was necessary. Okay. Who was behind that? That's a whole nother show. Okay. But in relation to, for instance, the beer hall push, the beer hall push that was a failed military coup that supposedly Adolf Hitler was behind. Munich. Okay. Did you know that what put Adolf Hitler on the map was his book, Mein Kampf, My Struggle, against who? Against this ethnic religious group and their bankers. And that was not written by Adolf Hitler. That was ghostwritten by a J named Bernard Stampfel. Okay, this is some of the stuff that I have come across. Joseph Mengele, raised in this religion, Rome, raised in this religion, and trained in Munich. Ernst Röhm, who was, what word can I say?
Poor guy.
Ernst Röhm was. Is it okay to say gay?
I think we're okay with gay.
Okay. Is that clear? Let's say the original brown shirt, Munich, killed in Munich, and the long knives, purged in Munich, and Night of the Long Knives. And honestly, I think he was probably purged because he was a little too radical. He wanted a complete and total revolution, and that was a no-go. There had to be stability. What is National Socialism? National Socialism, people have no idea. National Socialism is a conglomerate of government and big business. Okay, that was no revolution. That was tyranny in a different form. And the only reason why it sold is because the people were bamboozled to think that it was patriotic to welcome tyranny. And many of them regretted it. Quite a few didn't realize until it was over how they had been bamboozled. But simply masquerading far left tyranny as patriotic in no way, shape, or form is right wing. It's a masquerade. Okay, what is right wing? Right wing, and first of all, I don't even know that we should be using these terms. These terms are handed to us. Red and blue, I'll give you an example. Red and blue. Red is conservative. Blue is liberal. Wait a minute. Left wing is not liberal. Left wing is not open-minded. Okay? Right wing is not well, I am not conservative, stuck in the mud, not open-minded. But these are the way that the terms are manipulated. I can tell you from the military perspective, red is the enemy. Red are the people you want to go kill, okay? Blue are the allies. Do you see how this has been manipulated? Before you even open your mouth, the terminology has been manipulated. This is the milieu of the J people out of Rome, okay? It's what they do best. They own language, okay? I'm going to be saying J. People say he's saying the religious word, and no. I'm trying to tell you the order of priesthood. Okay, the J order. Let me be specific. It's so
Yeah.
impossible to
So
talk on YouTube.
no, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, I'll jump in. So we're going to use that word J for the word that rhymes with Yeshuit, right?
Sure. Let's say J order. Let's say J order as to
Okay.
differentiate from the ethnic religious
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
The J ethnic religious group versus the J order. Okay.
And since I
And
interrupted you already, could I jump in with one thing?
please, please.
This is I did a deep dive on this, and I'm under the banner of marriage of the opposites, because I'm working in the psyche in this, and then I interview people like you so I can learn, how to see that in the world, and then all of those pendulums, the right and the left, and the red and the blue, to me, these constructs are meant to hijack that part of our own psyche that naturally swings between opposites, usually on a pendulum. You're far on one side, and then you find yourself far on the other side, and you just go back and forth like that. And then to me, the purpose is not balance, it's actually to get off of their map that they created. And that's where the freedom lies. So I'll let you keep going.
Sure. I will tell you that they have hijacked the terminology, but to me, there is no balance in ideology. There's no balance in ideology for me,
Amen.
from my perspective, because being on the right is to be self-determined, is to be independent, but also to live for something bigger than you, to live for something outside of you, to have personal responsibility, to have that personal responsibility override that which is best for you. That's love. Love is not a feeling. Love is a conscious decision to sacrifice. There's no compromise on that from my perspective. So back to World War II and creating the Third Reich, from what I have seen. Oh, right. Great point, Don. Sure, we can also say the company, and interestingly enough, the nickname for the J order is the company. It is the same nickname for the Central Intelligence Agency. That's just a coincidence. The same nickname. You say the company, and if you are familiar with both, you don't know which that is, because that's the exact same nickname, both the CIA and this J order. So I believe, based on my research, that the Third Reich was created to punish Germany as the homeland of the Reformation. I believe that Japan was punished because they kicked out the J order, the company, in the 1600s, because they found the J order had very little to do with religion and everything to do with a military insurgency. They were complete opposite from Scorsese's 2016 movie Silence, where you watch this movie and it seems like when you say J order, it is synonymous with Christian evangelist. It was all about preaching Jesus to the Japanese, and in no way, shape, or form. It was all about making Japanese members of Rome. That was first and foremost, and very, very nuanced how Scorsese picks up after the J order had been kicked out. Never asks the question, why were they kicked out? The mere fact that Scorsese called the evil guy, the evil Japanese guy in Silence, an inquisitor. What? Gaslighting. There were no inquisitors in Japan. Those were J words. Those were J orders. There were no inquisitors. The weirdness of the lisp of that is just archetypal of who these. I go to another a very Catholic, when I say the word Catholic, a very Catholic movie, a very entertaining movie, Princess Bride, where we have the evil man with six fingers that tortures Wesley and calmly writes notes as he's torturing Wesley. And by the way, the torture scene where the evil six-fingered man pulls a lever and the wheel spins and water runs down, and he says, "I just bled away a year of your life. What do you think about that?" And Wesley cries. That's a deployment. That's a deployment. and he's
What is that?
standing there with a clipboard taking notes.
That's a
That's
deployment. How are you using that word? Like a deployment.
military deployment. When the
Yeah.
military sends soldiers for a year to a war,
Right.
and there were deployments that lasted 18 months, and there were deployments that lasted 2 years, but the typical deployment lasted at least 12 months. And think
Wow.
about that. That's
Wow.
at least that's a year of your life gone. And if you have pets that you left at home, that's 7 years off their lives gone. Gone. For what? For what? So
Yeah. That's poignant. Hey, I just wanted to jump in also and say that my ancestors in Russia were jailed for preaching the gospel. They were utterly rebels in their Christian faith, and nearly cost them their life.
let's talk about that. Let's get into Russia. So this J order. Okay, why am I focused on this? I'm focused on this because as an investigative journalist, my obligation to my audience is to tell them who is behind the scenes. What is the biggest question? Once you realize you've been lied to, once you realize that the institutions you trust are filled with malignant liars, they don't love you. They hate and fear you. Their desires are to rob you, to poison you, to enslave you, and to kill you. All of the institutions you trust, medicine, science, journalism, history, government, all of them at the very top, there are lots and lots of cogs that go along to get along. A rare few have the morality to, once they realize it, to get out, but most do not. There's a system. They all want to get paid, and they crush their ethics and morality to go along and get along. And the system is very good at keeping you in line. So this J order is what I found are the ones through Rome, and they have been doing this for millennia. Okay, thousands of years. Military Rome into religious Rome. They are experts at enslavement, experts, and even more terrifying, Beth, and this is predicted in the Bible, in Daniel 2 and 7 and the book of Revelation as well. It is predicted that this military beast of tyranny transformed into something much more deadly and scary. Mystery Babylon that works from behind the scenes. How much more terrifying is it? It's bad enough to have soldiers on your street corner enslaving you. But how about when it's your own law enforcement? This outside malignant authority owns your government. They use your soldiers and your police. You willingly give authority to your government. And this outside malignancy takes that authority and uses it against you. Your police, the last, what's the big word that we can't say that occurred between 2020 and 2024? Okay. The big word. And there were police officers going in restaurants and businesses saying, you will close your doors. You will not put food on your table for your babies because of this threat that doesn't really exist.
Well, this was the thing, Johnny, that, as soon as that stuff started happening in 2020, I'm like, it's Bolshevism. This is just right. Like I just jumped right to that conclusion because I could see the patterns from my own ancestors. And when I said that to my family, you wouldn't believe the hammer that they used to crush me. Like it was so angering for them to see me. Now I would go to talk to Eastern Europeans that I didn't know, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, it's the communists. Oh yeah, it's the," I don't know what words I can say or can't say. Well, we'll be learning.
Really hard.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's the Matrix, Beth. That's the Matrix. Anyone that has not been pulled out works for the machine. They've been so blinded. So Franz Mesmer, and is named after the co-founder of this J order. Franz Mesmer was named after the co-founder of this order, as was Guillotine. Ignaz Guillotine was named after the other co-founder of the order. Crazy. Okay. They're the ones that I've found are at the root of all this. And right now, who is being blamed but this ethnic religious J, the different J, the ethnic religious, but it's all over the place. Now, is it not intuitive, Beth, that if there was a machine that controlled information, the very first thing that machine would do was make themselves invisible. The very second thing they would do was take a group of patsies and shove them out for the feeding frenzy. Is that not what we're seeing? Well, I have names, places, and dates to prove that that's the fact, not just an opinion. But let me jump to the Bolshevik Revolution. Let me tell you that this group, this J order, these special forces are experts at enslavement. Long before 1917, 1918, and the October Revolution, long before that, they had taught themselves how to control human beings. And this was done, forgive my Spanish, my Portuguese, reductions, the reduction settlements in South America, particularly targeting the Guarani Indians. This order, this religious order of priesthood, had taken the writings of Thomas Aquinas in relation to property. And it was Thomas Aquinas's extremism. You can extrapolate from the early Christian church and how they behaved in the book of Acts. It's unfortunate for Christians to fall prey to this because it really is quite clear. The early Christians, and I refuse to say the word church because church implies an organization. Well, no, there was no organization, no structure. This was a fellowship. The early fellowship, ecclesia is the word in the Greek. The early fellowship made free will offerings of their property. There was no tyrannical governmental power standing over them. What is the supposed Marxian from those, not the top of my head, from those that have, and et cetera, it'll come to me. So maybe some of the audience, it's this bromide of a state communism, the bromide of state communism. As soon as you bring in the outside power to coerce you into forcibly giving up your property, now you have tyranny. Now you have control. That was in no way, shape, or form was that Christianity. It was a free will offering. Ananias and Sapphira, the two early Christians who lost their lives. Did they lose their lives because they weren't good communists? No, they lost their lives because they were liars. They went out and they claimed that they gave away all of their belongings out of love for the Christian movement, the fellowship. And they had lied. They kept some of it back. It wasn't the fact that they failed to give up all their belongings. It was the fact that they lied about it. And this was a very, very important point. And so by divine retribution, they lost their lives. It is not communism. State communism is a trap. State communism is a trap. It is the natural state of human existence to have striations and feudalism and classes. And I promise you, we have as feudalistic a society nearly, it's just under wraps. We absolutely have a feudalistic society. I have a whole spreadsheet of the families who share power. And you know this yourself. Families that give power from one to the next. I mention this as by an example. The Dingle family, who are Roman, C word, far left Dingle family out of Michigan. The Dingle family have been in Congress for over a century. Over a century. Dingle Sr. held a congressional seat. Dingle Jr. held it for another 60 years after that. Originally like 25 or 30 years for Dingle Sr. Dingle Jr. married a woman 30 years younger than him. When Dingle Jr. died in office, Dingle's wife stepped in. For a century, the Dingle family has controlled a seat in Congress for this outside malignant power. It's feudalism. And remember, as Congress people, they supposedly get reelected every 2 years. 50 times for a century, a Dingle has gotten reelected and put in that congressional seat. I'm sorry, Beth. Go ahead.
That's okay. No worries. So just if you could help me contextualize this, that my ancestors were originally from Germany. They were invited by Catherine the Great to come and live in Russia because, the story went that her people couldn't grow food, and Mennonites, who were pacifists, by the way, were famous for turning food into land. And so then they ended up, from what my father and his great aunt described, that they were very high on the hog because of that. They were very successful. They were wealthy. They even had slaves. And, but the meaning of the word slave has kind of changed. It's not the guy in the chains. It's, people working for them and their farm and everything. And then they were brutally attacked. Their village was raided. Children were killed and carried off, never to be seen again. My great grandmother was killed right in front of my grandfather. They fled for their lives to Canada from there. So what's the context going on in that? Yes. In that little vignette?
Oh my goodness. So this goes back to this J order. The J order, it's a military insurgency. And they were starting to feel the heat of political powers not liking the fact that they were being undermined. And so this order had a brilliant, satanically brilliant idea to suppress itself. This order looked back on what happened to the Templars. The Templars were forcibly suppressed by Philippe le Bel, Philip IV of France. 1300s, 1307 was particularly the crackdown. This Philippe le Bel also very temporarily suppressed the Roman Church and moved the Vatican from Rome to Avignon. It is one of only 2 points in history where this terrible power was suppressed. The other was by Napoleon Bonaparte. And Philippe le Bel paid for it with his life. He was assassinated. Napoleon Bonaparte, you could argue, was not working of his own accord. He was being manipulated by this very same power. So this J order had this brilliant idea to suppress itself and come out stronger after a short period of time, because it had watched the Templars do that. When the Templars were suppressed, they went underground. And those Templars, like de Molay, those Templars that weren't captured, tortured, and killed like de Molay went underground. And when they came back today, they are the Swiss bankers. They are the Swiss bankers. They are the Swiss guard that protect the Pope. Those are Templars. Okay. Right. And so this J order looked at that success model and said, I want that. And I don't care if we have to kill our own to get that. Lorenzo Ricci was the superior general at the time. Very brilliant, ruthless individual. They suppressed themselves. In no way, shape, or form would Roman Catholic kings and queens across Europe voluntarily kick out the best and the most dangerous of their religion. In no way, shape, or form, unless they were told by members of that same order, it's okay. Kick them out, put them on boats. It's okay that they perish at sea. And this is just terribly brilliant. How would they possibly do that? Because they know that once they resurfaced, they would be looked upon with pity. They would be they would have a much stronger position for their insurgency. And that it absolutely worked. This occurred in 1773. There were a few locations that they were allowed to run to. One of them was the island of Corsica off of France. You know who was growing up on the island of Corsica at the time? Napoleon Bonaparte. and they was taken in. There were, for every 15 Corsicans, there was one J word. That's how many J words they ran from France to the island of Corsica. Guess where else they were welcomed? They were welcomed by Sophie of Prussia. Oh, you don't know who Sophie of Prussia is? Sophie of Prussia is the German woman.
Is Prussia Russia? Sorry. Prussia is different.
No, like Prussia is Germany. Prussia is Germany.
Okay.
Prussia is Germany. Okay.
And
Sophie of Prussia.
We're not in the time of Catherine the Great then. Is that a different time?
No, it is. Okay. Sophie of Prussia married Peter III of Russia. She became the Duchess, the Tsaress, the Queen of Russia. And when her husband, Peter III, suddenly died, Sophie of Prussia became Catherine the Great of Russia. She's not native-born Russian. She's not native-born Russian. And this is very, very big amongst the feudal elite, not born here and interbred and intermarried with the other feudal elites. Their family tree don't fork, Beth. Their family tree don't fork by design. Did you ever hear of the Habsburg chin? Just grotesque. That's because of inbreeding. Habsburgs, Hungarian, Roman, C word. Okay? Power structure. Who called her Catherine? Who renamed Sophie of Germany Catherine the Great? Rome did.
Wow.
Okay. She was brutal. She gave safe harbor to these Jays. And the Jays came in and they were a massive insurgency. And this was the genesis of the October Revolution 200 years later. Catherine, Sophie of Prussia, inviting the Jays in during their self-imposed suppression. And this was the genesis. Later on, the Superior General, Vladimir Ledakowski, along with one of the most powerful J words in his day during World War II, Edmund Walsh. And they were personally responsible for the genesis of both the Third Reich and Soviet communism. And what led up to this, was trying to talk about this earlier, what led up to this was, okay, Karl Marx. Did you know that Karl Marx was trained by Jesuits? Pardon me, J words. I saw it. Let's slip out. I'm sorry.
It's okay. One Karl Marx? Yeah.
One J word was actually trained. So which is more dangerous? The J word, the religious ethnic J word who's in the spotlight, or the J words that trained them? Mm-hmm. The J words that created them and handed them to you. Which is the more important? Which is the most dangerous? So yeah. So it was the J order that had been studying Thomas Aquinas and taking him to the extreme of state tyrannically imposed no property communism as we know it. And they put this into practice in South America during the 1700s. And they terrorized the natives of South and Central America with this practice. And they thoroughly enriched their parent countries of the sovereign city-state of Rome, but also Spain and Portugal, to the great detriment. And there was genocide. Oh, by the way, this fits in very well with the smallpox blanket myth, the myth of smallpox blankets. Yes, there were genocides of native peoples. They were not killed by viruses. They were mass murdered by soldiers. in the name of this religion. Okay. So, and if you know the sources, and I've got sources on this, you can find it real quick. Social justice, a concept that leads into, so what they do is they own feudalism, is they beat down the peasant class with this feudalist elite, they beat them down with tyranny and abuse. And when they've had enough, these J words create their own revolution. And the sad fact is that the revolution ends up making things even worse for the beat down populace. And that's state communism. That's state communism. Absolutely true. There, we could go off. There's a friend of mine, Mark, remarked for me, showed me how it is entirely possible that the fires of London were a follow-on false flag to cover up for the murder of the bubonic plague in London. That was also fabricated. Both were false flags. And I found in my research, there is a pattern, the 1-2 pattern. The big false flag, and I probably am not allowed to say that word either. The big FF, the big foxtrot, and that is immediately followed by a little foxtrot as a distraction. As an example, this big thing that happened for 3 or 4 years that we're not allowed to talk about was immediately followed by Russia-Ukraine. A very fabricated wag the dog war. A very fabricated wag the dog war. Is there death there? Yes. Is there mass horrible? You can say the same thing about Gaza. There's a tremendous amount of fabrication and lies and disinformation, but there are also some real deaths. There's also some real tyranny going on there. It's designed so that you can't tell the difference. So
you have a big one, a big false flag, and you have a
little one to follow up to distract you so that you don't focus. Can we say 911? Okay, 911. Right after 911, you had the anthrax letters. And
right.
Oh my goodness, what a multiplicity of lies that was built on anthrax. Anthrax, it'll kill you. Anthrax, right? And they were working on this where? Out of Fort Detrick, Maryland. Why is everything in Maryland? Maryland is the colony that was created by this religion for this religion. This is the seat of American power. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The seat of American power is in Washington. Washington used to be called Little Rome on the Potomac for a reason. They are a mirror image of themselves. Let me go back to what you wanted me to talk about. It's all related. It's all related.
I know, I'm getting it.
Of the Bolshevik Revolution. It was exactly that. The czars were caught in their feudalism. The czars were caught in being aloof from the suffering of the common Russian. And the Jays, who had been invited there centuries before by Sophie of Prussia, aka Catherine the Great, who murdered her husband so that she could take over, were an insurgency, so that the communism that had been created by this Jay order in South America. By the way, I wanted to say social justice was a fabrication, not a fabrication, but the terminology social justice created by a Jay order priest by the name of Luigi Tapparelli. Fact. Not J ethnic religious, J priestly order. Okay. Same thing with usury banking. Who's behind usury banking? Oh, the J ethnicity. Oh, no, they weren't. Templars. The special forces of this RC religion out of Rome. They were the ones that came up with usury banking. That's just a fact. And it had to do with the pilgrimages that good Catholics were told they had to do to the Holy Land. So there is this horrible discontent. Peter the Great helped create it with being completely aloof, mass murdering, mass killing, not mass murdering, but just being aloof, mass killing of good Russians, particularly in creating his winter palace that he had so many good Russians die in creating so that he could live in this posh surroundings and move around from season to season, completely aloof to the suffering. And now he's Peter the Great. Okay. Love you, Bull. I appreciate you. So they created this discontent. They created this horrible imbalance of feudalism in Russia. And they also handed the good Russian people this trap that was the revolution. This trap. And here's the key, Beth. Beth, here's the key. When the revolution sprang up, Lenin, also a puppet. When the revolution, Trotsky, all of these Jewish names, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. All of these J religious ethnic names, they were fronts. They were fronts. A wonderful source on this is an ex-J order priest named Alberto Rivera, who said that all of the information that the order had learned by enslaving the Guarani Indians and the Mexican people, they put into writing.
Sorry. I think I'm just getting spammed. I'm checking, quickly checking to see if Rumble is working. My system tells me that it's not, and then somebody's spamming me on the video there, so it must be working. All right, good. Sorry for the...
No worries. You're recording, right?
We are recording. Yeah.
It'll go back up later. Don't... I fully expect there'd be a lot of kickback on this, and we may have trouble with the live, but they'll catch it on the replay. So what they had learned, what this J religious order had learned by enslaving the natives of Central and South America, they had read, they are very good. And that's what I was going to say.
What did they learn? What did they learn?
How to enslave.
Okay.
How to trick people. How to trick people into communes, how to get them to volunteer, how to get them to sweat and bleed for you and ask nothing in return. Manipulation, mind control. This is what they learned. They learned how to weaponize this. And they did it with altruistic means. If you come into this commune, we'll take care of you. We'll take care of your children. Your families will never be starving again. They'll never be full either. Your families will never lack. Well, actually, they never died as a result of lack, but they always lacked. They learned to live with less. Okay. How do you trick people into volunteering for this? That's what they learn. They are the ultimate manipulators. Okay.
Right. It would take too much energy to try to force. Like that's they always want to go for consent, right? Like
that's the transformation, Beth. That is the transformation. This is what Daniel the prophet was talking about. This transformation, the previous beasts in Daniel chapter 7, they all had recognizable features. A lion, a leopard, a bear. These were power. They were forcing themselves. Then this fourth and final beast was something never before seen. It is Mystery Babylon. It controls from behind the scenes, and it is a much better use of satanic resources. You volunteer. You sit in a cell. You don't even realize the door's not locked because you're afraid. And many that get up and they push on the door and they see it swing open, they get scared and run back into the cell. It is amazing.
Right.
The method of control.
Yeah. So can you help me now see how that's happening? I'm so selfishly just wanting to understand the experience of my own ancestors here. So now you know my agenda, but how is that taking place? That they had become experts at propagandizing this kind of consent to where they enslave themselves and they sit in the cell. So how, knowing now where Catherine the Great actually, came from, that she wasn't actually a German, she just murdered her husband to get into
Russian
power in that way.
Right. She was not a Russian. She was a German. She was Prussian.
Yeah, Prussian.
Exactly. An interloper.
Right.
And that's always the case when you have divine right and rule of bloodlines, when you have a single authority that I have the divine right. Oh, the popes behave the same way. Go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah. So I just want to see that where, how would that propaganda, was the invitation to grow food in Russia part of their propaganda, that you will be taken care of, your family will thrive, you will never be hungry? Was that like getting them to cooperate with?
Beth, I don't know if this was used on your ancestors, but I can tell you it was used on the Guarani. The most dangerous weapon is religion. The most dangerous weapon is religion. Now, if you are free, the Mennonites started out right. If you know to a degree, I will tell you that organized religion is enslavement. Organized religion is enslavement. From the Christian perspective, salvation is a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. As soon as human beings interpose themselves between you and Christ, you're a slave. As soon as a human being sticks themselves in between you and Christ, and they call themselves the conduit, they call themselves the Pontifex Maximus, they call themselves the Vicarius Filii Dei, the 666 in Latin, you're a slave. You're a slave. What we were saying earlier, you must do it yourself. You must attend to your physical health yourself. You must attend to your spiritual health yourself. You cannot trust outside human influences. And what the Guarani Indians were suckered. Many of them knew there was something more to what they had. Their overview was good, but it was sort of a animistic, pagan sort of, it was rough, it was sketchy. Here come these J words, and they had a precision to the gospel, but they also had a manipulation. They put human beings. It's very difficult to grasp the nebulous idea of the Savior in heaven. It's so much easier to rely on the priest in front of you. And that's where they exploited it, Beth. That's where they used the needs of these good people against them and said, I am the intercessor for you. You need to hear a human voice. I am the human voice of the Christian God. And that's how they got them. They needed to have, go ahead.
So then why would preaching the gospel have been illegal and punishable in those times?
Too much freedom. Too much freedom. If you're preaching the straight gospel of love Jesus, go to heaven. If you need a guidebook, here's the Bible. Very, very dangerous, particularly to the religion out of Rome, because the religion out of Rome has many methods of control that are spoken of against in the Bible. Issues of, Christ says, call no man father. You can extrapolate that and say, well, wait a minute, why am I calling this priest, this representative of this church, father? The woman that shouted out in the crowd, your mother and your brothers are here to see you. They're waiting for you. And he says, who are my mother and my brothers? They are those of you who hear what I say and obey. The woman in the crowd that yells out, blessed is the womb from which you were born and the breast at which you nursed. She's basically giving you hundreds of years, centuries before the Hail Mary was ever spoken. She's saying the Hail Mary. Jesus said, on the contrary, blessed are those who hear my words and believe. He was nailing man-made religion before it even got there. That's what the Bible says. And that's why the Bible was suppressed for 1,000 years by this religion. And it's not the J ethnicity. It's not the J religion. It is the Romeo Charlie religion out of Rome that burned alive Christians for being caught with the Bible. They were the ones that burned alive Christians for being, because that book was key to freedom, personal freedom. Organized religion is slavery. A living relationship, you, Jesus, nobody in between you. That's freedom. That's decentralized. And you don't have to worry about separation. It's separation of religion and state, not separation of church and state, because separation of church and state is a metaphor for the death of all faith. That's what they really mean when they say that. What they should be saying is separation of religious manipulators and public power. That's not what they mean. That's what they should mean. So I hate that phrase because it's manipulation.
Is it basically the Pharisees versus Jesus' teaching?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. He absolutely threatened the power structure. They had made a structure of control out of what we Christians believe was a God-breathed religion. But Paul clearly states the religion that was Judaism was flawed from the beginning. The system of sacrifices, Paul says, well, the author of Hebrews that we believe is Paul, the system of sacrifices can never get it done. The blood of animals can never cover sins. It was flawed by design. Paul says in Romans, it was designed to be a tutor to bring you to the answer. It was designed to fall short so that when you see the answer, who is the man, you say, he is much better. He is much better. That's why he cursed the temple and it fell in 70 AD. That whole system. But very evil, self-serving people made a power structure out of that. Good Hebrews went to the Pharisees for guidance, for leadership, and it was incredibly empowering. They tithed to this class of people. And along comes Jesus saying, live me. Live Matthew chapter 5. Live Matthew chapter 5. Live through me. I will show you thoroughly decentralized, no power, no in between. Jesus nailed religion to the cross, and the religious power structures could not handle that. As a matter of fact, it was the religious structure. The leadership killed him, not the people. That's why they arrested him in the middle of the night. What did he tell the guards? You wouldn't dare do this in the daytime because you'd be lynched by all these people that love me. It was the leadership who were threatened that paid off the guards. It was the leadership who were threatened that went and tried to change the crowds and say, no, not this rabbi. Give us Barabbas, the murderer.
Yeah. So how did that look in Russia? And you talked about two false flags, maybe the big one being the revolution. You said like 200 years after the fact.
It was a sucker play. It was basically a sucker play of the common Russian knew that they had been oppressed by the feudal elite, the czars, the bloodline czars who had intermingled and intermarried with others. They weren't true Russians, like Sophie, like the rest of them. They were there by divine right. And as soon as you have a single person or a single family ruling, you have the key to tyranny. You have the key to corruption. It is so much easier to corrupt and manipulate a single person or a single family. Centralization is key to tyranny. Decentralization is key to freedom. So the people were beat down and beat down and beat down, and then they were given a false solution. They were given stake.
So there were at least two kinds of people. There would be the Russians that lived there originally that were, again, according to the story, they were starving. They didn't know how to make food out of the land. And then the Mennonites came along and made some significant changes in that fact. And so here's, again, the story was told that it created animosity between the Mennonites and the Russian peasantry. And that's where the conflict started. So I'm guessing that's just a bunch of
This
BS.
is absolutely key. How to recognize a phony revolution. How to recognize a phony revolution. Who is being targeted? I'll bet you that probably what happened was it wasn't so much that the Russians were starving. It was that the Mennonites showed them how to farm better. They knew how to farm their own land, but the Mennonites came in with their insight and their knowledge, and they improved in a dramatic way. And by that, they became a threat to the power structure. And the threat deflected blame. When the revolution occurred, who should have been taken down? Billionaires, bankers, big corporate entities. Who actually got taken down? Farmers, the educated, students. Who got taken down in the October Revolution? In no way. That is the key that is so important to understanding whether any kind of a revolution is top down or bottom up. And it is almost never bottom up. It is almost always manipulated. These people are experts, Beth. These people are experts in control. They beat you down with the left, beat you down with the left, beat you down the left, and then they come in with the right. But it's their right. It's not your right. It's theirs. And they're giving you a false solution. Who Joseph Stalin was the strong man to come in and really cement state communism. He wasn't Russian either. He was a J priest from Georgia. He was a J priest from Georgia, which made it so much easier for him to mass murder Russians. He wasn't Russian. He had no tie to them. 40 million, and sent many more millions more sent to the gulags, because that was his mission. That was what he did. The poor people of Ukraine, they had two choices. The J in Germany, Nazi Germany, J's Himmler, Heinrich Himmler, also an ordained J priest. They had the Himmler priest, they had the Stalin priest, the poor people in Ukraine. And what did they get as a result? 7 million starved to death in the Holodomor. 7 million needlessly starved to death. That's why to this very day, you have two basic factions. Factions of Nazis, neo-Nazis in Ukraine, and factions of Russian sympathizers. And if anyone has a better claim, it's the Russian sympathizers, because and that's why they're so minimalized. They have a common ancestral boundary through Kiev and Rus. But this is the playground of the Central Intelligence Agency. Ukraine is the playground, and above them is this Romeo Charlie religion. The Romeo Charlie religion out of Rome owns the CIA. They were founded by a Romeo Charlie Knight of Malta, a Wall Street lawyer named William Donovan. And just like we call just like we call Sophie Catherine the Great, we call William Donovan, the war profiteer, DuPont war profiteer, Wall Street lawyer, we call him Wild Bill, because he was just such a hero, a knight of this religion. He was a hero. He's the founder of today's CIA. The founder, two of the most evil organizations in the world, the CIA and the FBI, both founded not by this group out of this religious ethnic group out of Palestine, the Jays out of Palestine, founded by Jays out of Rome. Charles Joseph Bonaparte, the great grandnephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, founded the FBI, a daily mass attendee. Okay. And this is the stuff that I'm coming across, and I'm saying nobody is talking about this. So I'm going to go ahead and be the black sheep and say, you're pointing to this ethnic religious group and frothing people up. And I'm telling you, there's a group behind them. And it's the one, the manipulator, the master. They've known for thousands of years how to enslave and manipulate. They are Mystery Babylon, controlling from behind the scenes. Your police, your soldiers answer to them, not to Jerusalem and Palestine. They answer to Rome. Can we get away with Jerusalem versus Rome? Can we say that? Is that allowed?
I don't know.
By the way, who owns YouTube? Who owns YouTube? Google owns YouTube. What's Google's birthday? The 27th of September, which is the anniversary birthday of this J priesthood order. That's just a coincidence, Beth.
There you go. There you go. Could I throw another little nugget and see if you can give me some context?
You're the host. You go.
So the Russian Revolution was actually 1917, as far as I know from the history books. So in 1911, now I might get this wrong, great-great-grandfather, could be great-great-great-grandfather, was arrested for antagonizing the government. So this is pre.
Wow.
I know.
The Tsars were not good people. The Tsars were not good people, okay? They were oppressive. They were aloof. But they had a somewhat stronger tie to the average Russian than the communists did. The communists were a complete outside insurgency by design. By design. So good Russians lived with the Tsar tyranny until it became too much to bear, until it was overpowering. And so in no way, shape, or form, there's this romanticism of the Tsars, particularly the Tsars that I'm brain freezing the name of the family that was Anastasia and Romanovs, the Romanovs. There's this romanticizing of the Romanovs. They were still elites. They were still way. They were living up on Mount Olympus above all the unwashed, and they were completely immune to the suffering of the common Russian. And this is the tyranny of feudalism that led up to the opportunity of the October Revolution. The October Revolution would have not been possible had there not been a rule of the czars and an aloof feudal elite. So that's feudalism.
Right. So there was a lot of bad feelings between
Absolutely.
the groups, the Russians and in my case, the Mennonites would have, or not in my case, but the Mennonites would have recognized this aloof rule. This
From the outside, you had good Christians coming in from the outside with clear discernment and vision. They're the enemy. See those Mennonites? No. Don't worry about the billionaires. Don't worry about the bankers. Don't worry about the war makers, the war profiteers in Germany. It was the Krupps and not so much Willie Messerschmitt, but the war manufacturers. Okay, don't worry about them. They're not the problem. It's those dirty Mennonites, those outsiders. Meanwhile, they're just good farmers. They're just helping out. So they were a threat to the power structure, and so they were scapegoated. Okay. As soon as you see the wrong people targeted, what we're seeing now, as soon as I promise you, these people that are being thrust up, especially across Twitter, if these people were really running the show, you would not be able to go on Twitter and see them being blasted over and over and over and over again. I promise you, the ones who are invisible are the ones running the show. Okay, these are scapegoats. Mm-hmm. As soon as you see a group being targeted, you need to be aware and alert that they are scapegoats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a perfect fit, because the net result was shame, and that's part of how when you scapegoat somebody, you're projecting an identity on them that if they assume it, they come out of it, because it was totally swept under the rug. When they came to Canada, it was a zip. Nobody talked about it ever again. There was this underlying thing that it was their wealth and their slaves that made them, brought on their own demise and attack and brutal rape and murder. And then it was like, if my great aunt hadn't spilled the beans on her deathbed, I wouldn't know one thing about this.
And what was the power structure that they ran to in Canada? Who owns, what is the religious structure that owns Canada?
Same old.
The Romeo Charlie Charlie out of Rome, the same structure, different. Yeah. We had an oppressive, there was a masquerade of atheism. I'll give you Fidel Castro, the baby daddy of Justin Trudeau. He was supposedly an atheist communist. No, he was a Romeo Charlie. He was trained by the J order of priesthood. His mother was very devout Romeo Charlie. Okay. So it is a mask and a masquerade. Yeah. But underneath all of this is this power structure. It is control. And I can't emphasize enough that this order, this group, this entire movement out of Rome is not Christian. It is a manipulative military political power structure. Exactly what I said. Let me just restate it again. For Christians, if you are a Christian, it is you and a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, period. And if you need a guidebook, a rule book, it is the Bible. As soon as a power structure, and not just any power structure, Beth, but an incredibly organized power structure, and they get into your head. They get into your head through the confessional. Mm-hmm. They manipulate you with your sins. You speak your sins to them, and they absolve you in the sign of the cross. They are the go-between. Meanwhile, the Bible says there is one advocate. Christ Jesus is your advocate. No priest should be hearing your sins. If you have sinned against another person, a brother or sister, you confess to them.
Yeah.
And then you confess to Christ. You don't give a group, a class of priesthood this power over you. And oh my goodness, do they manipulate? Oh my goodness, do they manipulate that power and authority? They're the abuse of the children. Oh, Beth, the abuse of the children. the power and control, the way that they get away with it, of the mass abuse of children in collusion with government. They abuse children for decades. And then maybe decades later, when all of the abusing clergy are dead or drooling on themselves, we might get a documentary out of Netflix like The Keepers.
Right,
Where
right.
we
Hey,
hear,
could I interrupt just quickly and go back to the point of the confessional?
sure,
Because there's actually a really good conversation going on in the chat. They went into that, people can be paid off rather than be moral beings. This was actually different. But then they were talking about the original meaning of the word sin is to miss the mark. And humanity did miss the mark. And, so this is what was held over, again, back to shame, by the way, because
yes,
if you're in, you hear the confessional and then you've got this dirt on somebody, and then you can control them because we're locked in these,
absolutely,
right?
yes.
And being the masters of the internal mechanisms that are vulnerable to this kind of programming. Programming is my subject. This is something that I have studied intensely for many, many years, and to save my life and to see how it works and interacts. Now, nobody can give you programming, but they can give you such extreme circumstances that you will, out of desperate measure, program yourself without knowing
Absolutely.
it, without discrimination, and get it back to consent, right? That we do it to ourselves. We put ourselves in these mental, emotional, and spiritual jails. And so this is shedding a lot of light.
Absolutely. Let
Yeah.
me tell you that from a Christian perspective, it's not there are no rules. It's not that you can never be manipulated by, well, it is that you can never be manipulated. It's not that you will never feel, there are rules from the Christian paradigm, but in true Christianity, it is thoroughly decentralized. The rules come from him, and if you break the rules, you address it with him. But if there's a human being intercepting that and manipulating you by what you've done, for instance, if you enter into a sacred commitment with a spouse and you break that commitment and you cheat on that spouse with someone else, that's breaking of a rule. Okay. You have betrayed that spouse's trust. That's breaking a rule. You need to take that up with the person that you've hurt, and you take it up directly with Christ, with God. But these manipulators stand in between that, and they use your guilt. They use your indiscretion against you. Hey, you have had an illegitimate child with this mistress. We will make that go away, and now you become ours for a lifetime. We will own
Exactly.
you for a lifetime. And that is
Exactly.
done to this day.
Exactly. And Silimo said, we all hold the keys to our collective prisons. Will we release ourselves? That is the $1 million question right there. And again, that's my mission, that to discover that the jails you think, because when we hear programming, we think somebody did it to us. And it's true that those extreme circumstances were created, but because we made the original unconscious decision to program ourselves, we can release ourselves. And to a miraculous degree. I just wanted to get that message on the record.
I would say human nature has been exploited. It is human nature
Yeah.
to know that there are rules. It is human nature where no one is perfect. It is human nature to break the rules, and it is human nature to feel bad about breaking the rules. But unfortunately, there is a malignant elite that rushes in and exploits that process and says, we will take care of how you have fallen, how you have missed the mark. We will help you fix that.
Right.
And then they manipulate you and they enslave you. Now, let me give you an example. It's not as easy as it would at first seem, especially in relation to, can I say the Sierra Echo X-ray? Okay. The joining of people, the 3-letter word. Can I say the 3-letter word? This is a tremendous power.
I think that you can say that.
I
That
got you.
took me a
I got you
while.
with the phonetic alphabet. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that one. Yeah, the 3-letter word. So this is a motivation that has been used against humanity from the beginning.
It's
From the beginning.
intensely hijacked. It actually gets a chapter in my book on the hedonist archetype and the way that that one has been really severely weaponized against us.
Okay.
And I'd like to also go back to the children because a child is intensely vulnerable. That's why it's the highest sin to harm a single hair on a child's head, and they will take in like a sponge, right? So that's the time when you can that's when all our programming starts. It doesn't mean that we don't end up doing that more and later, because we get in the habit of pushing everything into the unconscious. But that is when you can get the child to doubt and create a hunger for life, for love, for a sense of control over their own life, and for a flaky spiritual word called oneness, which is our connection, which is our humanity, which is our basis for all knowing basic right and wrong that every child knows, but will spend their whole little young life testing against the measure of the perception. And so they are fragile, and this is something that they know if they get the children, they've got everybody.
From the perspective of that 3-letter word, Beth, you're talking about rules again. You're talking about rules, because children are heavily exploited and used in this lust process.
I know.
People are dangled the mere fact that Jeffrey Epstein is a household name is proof that he is a front for something much deeper. There are so many other scandals that you have never heard of by design. By design, this guy is a common household name because of his ethnic religious connections. There are so many others that you've never heard of. You're talking about self-control. You're talking about, yes, your body requires a constant outlet for that 3-letter word. It's like eating and drinking. It's a desire. It's an urge. There is a massive spectrum that you can release that urge, but along that massive spectrum, very often people get hurt. In the spectrum where people don't get hurt, it's pretty narrow. It requires you to have discipline and self-control. And then if you add the Bible, unfortunately, that spectrum gets a little smaller too. But that's his rules, and it depends if you want to honor those rules. But that very, very large spectrum where other people get hurt, that requires self-control. And that's where the exploitation comes in. When you know you've done something wrong, when you have not had restraint, when you have used the innocent for your own fulfillment, and they were there watching and taping and recording, now you're theirs. And I promise you, Beth, everyone at a position of power is being manipulated in this way. Donald Trump foremost. Donald Trump absolutely foremost is blackmailed, is corrupt, is controlled. He is not, and I say this as a member of the so-called right. I promise you, people on the right, in no way, shape, or form, the guy is playing a role. The guy was. Go ahead.
Could I jump in with something that was in the chat? I don't want to go too far past it before. I just somebody posted that Elliot posted that progress is just secular eschatology. Can you unpack that for me? And then he also
Oh wow, yeah.
whiteness is just secular original sin, and scientists are just secular priests.
Brilliant. That's my Elliot out of Texas. He's so wonderful.
Okay.
This is exploitation. This is an unhealthy outlet for the natural yearning of the soul. Now, again, this is my Christian perspective. Let's look at the green agenda. Let's look at the green agenda. It is a natural human emotion to feel guilt about being comfortable, to want to give back, to want to conserve. A malignant machine out of Rome takes those natural desires and manipulates them, so that now we have the answer to your guilt. Rather than being healthy between you and your maker, between you and anyone else you have wronged, they manipulate that, and they say, in order for you to assuage, they are priests. These scientists are priests. In order for you to assuage your guilt, you need to reduce your standard of living. You need to sell your SUV. You need to never again have another incandescent light bulb. You need to reduce your quality of living so that you can assuage your guilt and do penance for your sins. These are words that come from Rome.
Mm-hmm.
This is how they manipulate guilt, because you are in an unhealthy place spiritually. You do not have a proper outlet. It is not wrong to realize that we regularly miss the mark. That is absolutely true. We regularly miss the mark, but you need to address that decentralized with your maker. And if you're not quite sure where to start, Christians have an answer. You start with your Bible. You do not let institutions and human beings manipulate you through when you miss the mark. And like I said, with the example of adultery, of a sacred commitment to a spouse, and you fall short because you're attracted to someone else, that's a violation of loyalty. Your spouse expects you to stay loyal to them, physically loyal. That's the hard thing, and it's impossible to do without outside help. When you miss the mark, you address it there. You don't allow an outside system to exploit your guilt. Like Elliot is saying, you turn to science and government. They're all frauds. They are frauds. They are manipulating you. They're manipulating your guilt. And what's worse about this is well-meaning people say, yeah, I feel guilty about living well. Let's go ahead and let's take your SUV, Beth. You don't feel this guilt? I do. I'm going to take your SUV and I'm going to empower the government to do it. That's where you have tyranny. That's where you have a religious order that you don't even realize it's there. And who are the experts at this? Who've been doing this for eons, for thousands of years? Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Rome.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Elliot is talking about. Brilliant.
Wow. Wow. Hey, Topher, he says it's been blocked for him the entire time. That sucks. At least I believe we're recording on, Facebook, YouTube, X, and
yes, I also have a backup recording. Yes, ma'am.
I also do. I'll have a recording from this. And
good.
I got scared yesterday. My blog disappeared. Every single more than 300 interviews gone.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Yeah, it turned out.
Never leave things online. Never leave them. Always have an archive copy. Always.
I always do. I stash away on a remote drive every single interview that I do. So it's okay. It came back and it was, but yeah, too bad Topher can't come on. He was really excited about this. We are starting to come down to the end of our time. Unfortunately, I'm booked, and the feed says an error occurred. Here, let me just quickly open YouTube. Sorry if it's going to be a.
Do what you got to do, Beth. I'm yours,
Yeah.
Beth. If you want to come back and continue, this is very commonly the case. I will be thrilled to come back anytime you want me back.
It's live on YouTube. It's been live, and people are chatting. So maybe they're blocking Topher or something like that. Try clearing the cache, I would say. Also
crazy, but not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Okay, somebody's chatting that to him because he won't hear me. But this has been very enlightening. Thank you. I knew the story that I had been told was not real. This is tying in exactly my subject, the psychological, emotional, and spiritual manipulation of people, of the nature of a human being that is in the image of God, and so
Beth, let me just say that be wary. It's overwhelming. The audience is going to see this as overwhelming. You can't do it all. You can't be your own healer, not a doctor. A doctor is a manipulator. You can't be your own healer. You can't be your own journalist. You can't be your own pastor, but you have to be. And so what you do is you ask, for me, I ask Christ for discernment. Help me pick people that I can trust. And you do that by relationships. You build relationships, and you see that someone is not exploiting you, and that builds trust over time. So you rely on outside sources to help you do it yourself. I'm sorry, it's overwhelming. It is overwhelming. We're terrified. We're terrified of ever needing emergency medicine. Medicine is a manipulation word. It implies you need a substance to get well. But the sad fact is that 100% of the power structures, religious, political, journalist, they're all malignant. They all seek to harm you. And the vast majority of them are cogs. They probably don't even know, but most of them do. Most of them have a little voice in the back of their head, the back of the mind. I love Dawn. I've been Dawn, you were too easygoing on doctors saying they were trained. They know in the back of their minds, if all they do is ameliorate symptoms and they never get to the root cause of your health, they know they're not healing you. They know that.
They know. There's a word for that, duration paradox, right? Where they give you the ivermectin and you feel good and you go, yay, I'm healed, right? Or
you've ameliorated a symptom temporarily. They know they're doing that.
Exactly. And then
they know they're not healing you.
And you go into denial thinking that had anything to do with it.
Oh my
right?
goodness, yeah.
I was just going to actually make a little parallel, since you're interviewing Garrett Smith as well. And someone messaged me, I'm giving a talk for Love Your Liver members only. This one will not be in public because it's going to be really specifically related to the programming around food and those people that are trying to navigate a true path now. And so I got a message this morning saying that someone was suffering overwhelm because of kind of what you're saying, that there's been just so many levels of mind fuckery. I'll just use the first swear word of this whole podcast. One or two, I think, won't be fun with too much trouble. And then so their main weapon is to create overwhelm and confusion. Well, guess what archetype this is? It's the child. And this is, I think that this has been the main strategy to infantilize the populations and get them down. And if they're really, really lucky, they're going to go from the child to the rebel, which is the archetype right after the child. And they're going to get stuck in there. So I've been seeing this figure 8, how they flip us from the child to the rebel, to the child to the rebel. And we stay in that loop and go nowhere on our hero.
Beth, trust the science, Beth. Don't do your own research. Have you heard these bromides before, Beth?
Yeah.
Don't. You are not an expert. You cannot handle the truth. You must trust the expert. Trust the science. The Ouroboros that eats its own tail? Okay. Have you heard these methods of control and enslavement? Mm-hmm. So listen, don't let it be overwhelming, members of the audience, but use discernment. I promise you, the power structures do not love you. I promise you, when you see Anthony Fauci on CIANN, he's not got your best interest at heart. He is a J word. Okay.
Now we know that in this community. So I don't have a single viewer that would disagree with you. But where we get stuck is in giving the same authority and trust over to other institutions that we consider to be alternative, whether that's media or natural medicine.
We've talked about, Beth, before you go, this is, now listen to me. If the machine owns it all, is it not intuitive that they have planned for us? They have planned that there are going to be dissidents that ask questions, and they need to keep those dissidents on the plantation. So they give out ivermectin. They give out alternatives. Oh, you have healthy skepticism about this shot. Healthy skepticism. We will give you a drug to preserve our virus paradigm. Do not question the viruses. Okay, they really do exist. It's absolutely healthy to question this. Okay, do you see how they give you half truths and they give you manipulators to hand this to you? Now we have that to a degree with this vitamin issue. We have people within our community who are making money off of vitamins who don't have the integrity to say, you got a point there. The idea that the medical and health industries are full of baloney when they say they are able to synthesize your nutritional needs and give it to you in a pill, and they don't have the integrity to recognize that there's something going on there. That it makes no sense? That what does make sense is that in no way are they trying to keep you healthy. They're trying to send you in the wrong direction. There are people within our community that don't have the ethics and morality to realize that they're making money off of it. They're very broke. And this is why I'm looking forward to talking to Garrett, because Garrett is unlike some key people that you and I are thinking of by name right now. We're not going to mention their names, who are making money off of vitamins and don't have the integrity to ask those common sense questions. What really is this? Where does this come from? Who is synthesizing this for this? And is it even possible to synthesize a nutrient? That's counterintuitive. If your body has a nutritional need, you get it raw from the source, unless there's something standing in the way of getting it raw from the source. Is it not intuitive? Okay.
It's nuanced. So that's part of the brainwashing that natural equals healthy. And it's not true, not even close. So whether you found your potassium in a natural context or you found it in a powder, then this is where we get down to some of the basics of biochem. We won't.
Who made the powder for you? Who made the powder for you?
But
are you able to verify that it's truly sodium?
No, but I can verify the effects. So would it be okay if we don't go all the way down this rabbit hole? I will let people know that I have interviewed Dr. Garrett Smith 3 times. So if you go back in the archives, you will find these interviews. They are extremely important. Johnny is going to be hosting him as well. This is a movement. I would say get on it earlier, because it's going to be harder to repent later. There's my bold face. I didn't even think I was going to say that, but there I just went and said it. And, but that's it. All I want to do is bring people, I think you probably agree, just bring people some awareness that they could realize there's a new choice, like John said, so we could start actually taking responsibility for ourselves based on, because, even if you have that idea to be responsible for yourself, but it's based on wrong knowledge, you're still screwed. So I think this gives people half a chance. I know you've got the exact kind of right mind. That's why I reached out to you. I'm not reaching out to a whole bunch of people for other reasons that,
I'm honored, Beth.
I'm not a predator. I'm not somebody, I don't want to take anybody down. I don't want anyone to suffer, but there is going to be some repentance, and it's going to be between you and your creator. I can't sit on my high horse and judge. I have been wrong my whole life already. I just thank God that I never went into counseling people on their health. I could have easily done that as a cancer survivor, right?
So dangerous to not even know. Listen, even when you're guarding yourself from your motivations, you could still be subconsciously manipulating a patient in a direction that suits you rather than it's best for them. And I'm not saying that it's impossible. Real quick, I just want to say, just to clarify, I'm not saying it's impossible not to synthesize. I'm just saying trust but verify. I'm just saying trust but verify.
Yeah, and that's what I've always done. I've always had that idea that I'm the experiment. I'm going to experiment on myself, and I'm going to watch the results, and I'm going to see, can I repeat my results? And this is all I've really got for that. But we can get together and we can see, 2,000 other people who are able to get some result in that same paradigm.
You may have to. If you lack the ability, if you lack the equipment, you lack the expertise, then you put yourself carefully on the road of trying and looking at results. I just say be careful, because when you can't trust the system, when you can't trust the machine, it's very difficult to know who to trust. So,
well, this is a very big subject of the child archetype, who is always, and this is how they trick us. We're either going to have to trust the science or trust the authority or trust the external, whatever it is, or this is the pendulum swing, or you trust yourself. This is where we are caught. This is where the rebels get caught. The resistance gets caught here. This is not real knowledge. Trusting yourself. The Bible says, don't trust a person, not any person, not even yourself.
Amen.
Trust is for God.
Amen.
And that's
Agreed.
all.
Agreed.
So,
Verify. Be your own scientist.
Right. So it's not that's not the quality that we're going for, to trust ourselves. Everybody's hypnotized. So there's not a day that goes by some client doesn't tell me they want to trust themselves. It was today again.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And so this is a very important point, and I'm sorry to be so passionate. And then, yeah, we're all guinea pigging our self-clean. It's just that's exactly what we are facing, unfortunately, because of the
system let us down. The system is malignant. The system wants to harm us. We have to. We have no choice.
Exactly. It's and it's an intention. It's not. And like you've outlined here, and I interrupted you about 1,000 times, but the same exact pattern has been handed down and was there in the takedown, or what, I wouldn't even exist if they were totally successful in taking that village out. But there were a few survivors.
These people are experts, Beth. These people are experts. That's why Fauci proved himself such a malignant manipulator with AIDS first. He proved himself a J word, a mass murdering J word with the AIDS scam. And by proving himself, he was the central bureaucrat for many different presidential administrations. And they have all this foolishness. Oh, Donald Trump doesn't like fire him. You wouldn't dare fire him because there's a power structure up in that put him in his role by design to be a mass murderer. And it is the J word out of Rome, not the J word out of Jerusalem. It's clear how they've exploited us, how they've done us such terrible harm from this.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris was just sharing how he's been victim of both medical and naturopathy, and that's I'm in this exactly the same boat. So I feel very not sorry for you, but I feel for you. How's that? And
what a terrible journey. What a terrible journey. Meanwhile, simple things. The C word is your body screaming at you. You've been poisoned because of your habits. You didn't know any better. You didn't know that the constant reliance upon electronic devices was harming you. You didn't know that constantly eating fast food, constantly drinking soda pop was poisoning you over time and accrued. Your body was trying to give you messages, and you didn't listen because the people in the medical industry purposely kept you ignorant until finally your body crashed with the big C. All you needed to do was, not all you needed to do, if you knew to radically change your habits that poisoned you, you could have immediate results. What doctor out there tells you as soon as you're diagnosed, go on a fast, go dramatically change, reduce your stress? You can give yourself through mental distress, you can give yourself the big C. Through emotional distress, you can give yourself the big C. I promise you, you need a radical change. Just in a radical change, you could have immediate results as a big C victim. No doctor is telling you that. Real healers are telling you that.
Yeah, I have lots to say on that too. And I'm so sorry. I'm going to get interrupted.
I know.
Sure. So I just wanted to share all of your channels out. So if you haven't, if you haven't found Johnny, did this work? Darn, these stupid things. Every time you copy and paste into this platform, we're not going to. You were seeing it, but it's not clickable. So is it all listed at your website? Yes,
on my website, johnnycirucci.com, JOHNNYCIRUCCI.com.
Okay.
In the I have a contact page, and in my contact page are my channels, my video hub channels, Odyssey, Rumble, BitChute, Brighteon, and YouTube. Let me say that Beth is absolutely wonderful. I've been on my better than best behavior because of YouTube. If you go and you see some of my regular streams, I am passionate. I'm Italian. I will use some coarse language. Please, I ask your forgiveness for that. If that's troublesome for you, gravitate towards my interviews. I am personally disciplined in my interviews. And so it's like kind of two different Johnnies. It's the raw Johnny when I'm by myself, but when I'm with wonderful hosts like Beth, I'm on my better behavior. So,
well, I thank you so much, Johnny, because I know this was probably a pain in your neck to have to.
Loved it. And even studying up, I have notes. I had notes that I had, and a lot of them I didn't get to, but I'm happy to do it again another time.
That's amazing. So good. And I'll let the audience know. Thank you so much for joining. If you haven't subbed to my channel, please feel free to do that. It is intensely suppressed on, I usually come off the live stream and there were less views than there were viewers. So there's definitely a suppression going on there. And if you'd like to get a little window into your own consciousness and the hero's journey and how we cycle through the 8 archetypes of the hero's journey, people can actually do a lot with one 10-minute quiz just by answering questions, finding out what your archetype right now is. And we'll get you yet.
I'll keep trying.
Yeah. That'd be fun. Maybe from a different device or something like that. And welcome. I saw Tammy in the chat there. That's nice to see you. And Polly Vegas is sending her prayers. And we wish you a lot of good health, Chris. If you haven't, maybe you are already in Garrett Smith's community. That would be, to me, the biggest, fattest chance. If I knew what I know now, it would never have taken me 3 years and near-death experience and a prognosis of dying to get past that, or the 25 years I've spent trying to detox, which I'm still very much working on. You can do this quiz at my website at this link here that you can click in the chat. It's also down in the notes, or you can just visit my website. I'm also the host of the House of Free Will. And Johnny, I would love to have you in there. It'd be amazing. Yeah. It is for those rare souls, the 20% of us that can't be hypnotized and are not afraid to feel the pain of having erred in our ways, in whether it was completely innocent or it was something bigger than that. And detox is a beast. Chris, feel free to reach out to me if you want a little bit. And we have actually a community within the House of Free Will that is actively daily helping each other on this detox path, given the new knowledge that we have. And we see people making progress. One person I know has had to change her prescription of her glasses twice because her eyes improved in not consuming vitamin A to the degree anymore. And so that's just a little example. I'm going to be hosting, by the way, Hope Tipton, I believe is her last name, and she's been in that process with Garrett for maybe 4 years, and she's seen huge changes, and now she's actually consulting, and I get to be part of her meetings. So she's going to come on and just tell her story. She's never got in front of a camera or behind a mic like you. Excellent. And she's scared, but I think the more we hear these stories, the better it is for us to recognize our own potential, because that's always, when if somebody wants to be a podcaster and they go and watch you for 5 years and they're like, I can do that. I could turn on a camera. I could do some research and have something to say and share my truth, because everybody's truth needs to be shared. That's what purpose is all about. On our own, we are not the ecclesia. We are not the church, but together we are.
We learn by doing as well. We learn by doing. You need those experiences. You want to express yourself, and you should express yourself, but you're going to need to get started, and you're going to need to stumble, and you're going to need to make mistakes, and you need to learn by those mistakes. So hopefully when you make those mistakes, they don't cause you an excess of harm, and that's just comes with knowledge and maturity. So we learn by doing.
Right. And we can learn by other people's mistakes, right? Hopefully. Watch me. I got so sick before I started to pay attention. You don't have to do that. Right. So, yeah, there you go. I think I shared a lot of my speeches there. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Well, so much love to you, Johnny. Lots of love to everybody in the chat. Join us again. When is my next interview coming up?
God. Place in her own skin. Mornings were the hardest. Waking up to the reflection that seemed to mirror.
Oh, that's weird. I think that's Rumble. It plays itself. It's so aggressive, that platform, with ads.
I'm not surprised. The mere fact that you're not allowed to, it's totally controlled, guys. When you get kicked off of YouTube, you go to Rumble and BitChute, and now Odyssey has had to been forcibly sold, hostile takeover. It's all controlled. The mere fact that you have no recourse to handle a troll in Rumble, there's no way to block somebody in Rumble, that should be the warning flag that it's a very controlled outlet.
Exactly. Good point. So I'll just let people know that coming up on the 21st, Charlie Robinson is coming on of Macroaggressions. Had an amazing, actually, he interviewed me the other day. We, of course, ended up talking about food for almost the entire time. And because and the best quote, he said that I don't want to be right, I want to do right. And that's like, that should be on t-shirts and billboards, I tell you. Also, Miguel Connor is coming on these two are in May. And Grant Jenneru, who is you could call it that he discovered toxic bile theory and the toxicity of vitamin A and several other vitamins. He's the longest. He's a decade into this process and has a really good story. So he agreed to come on. So I'm just letting you guys know all of that. And one more, Daniel Reutess as well. I am going to play us out with another clip from my son. A shout out to Psycho. Is his name. I had nothing to do with naming his YouTube channel, as you might be able to hear. He is the creator of both the intro and the extra. I always promise to shout out to him. And I always encourage him to put up a lot more videos. And then he uses me to block him because he's a good rebel, just like his mom. And but anyway, I am very grateful to have a classy little intro and extra. Thanks to him. All right, Johnny. Well, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I have lots of love for you. Thank you. You're very welcome. All right, everyone. Bye for now.